The other day, someone asked me an interesting question. They asked me, is there such thing as a good color or a bad color? And I thought, wow, that's kind of a tough question to answer because it's really broad. you, when we talk about what makes a bad color versus a good color, what are we really talking about? Are we talking about the color that's contained within like a piece of art? Or are we talking about an individual manufactured, like, tube of paint or color on a screen or any kind of just individual color that an artist works with? Context really matters. Now, when we think about context, I think it helps to look back throughout art history and look back at yesteryear. Let's start, well, not maybe not at the beginning, but a little farther back, like 200, maybe 150 years ago, let's say around the time that J.M.W. Turner was doing his thing. Now, back around that time, it was pretty standard practice for colors to be very subdued, to be, oh, naturalistic. J.M.W. Turner was breaking out of that box, so by the standards of the day, he was considered to have bad color. Yeah, go figure, right? But if we're talking about the stuff that he was using, all the individual colors that he had on hand, he was getting from Winsor Newton and making himself, well, in that case, he had some bad colors, I guess, but he also didn't have that much to choose from because this was around the time that the Industrial Revolution was going on, so a lot of colors were being produced, and it was sort of a renaissance for artist materials. And the result was that we kept getting more and more materials after that. Of course, then, by the standards of that day, they were much lower than they are now for what we consider a color that should ever see the market. Like back then, they had a lot of mercury based colors and arsenic based colors and and various dyes that were all really, really impermanent. They were very susceptible to fading. And well, J.M.W. Turner, he used them, a lot of them. Pretty much anything that came out and that he could get his hands on, he would go ahead and throw into his paintings, for better or worse. It was so bad, apparently, that William Windsor confronted him about it, and Mr. Turner, in his traditional style, said, "Mr. Windsor, your business is to make colors. My business is to use them." That is so JMW. But we can't really hold it against him if he used a lot of nasty colors at the time because the alternatives were much duller and he really wanted to use the brighter stuff, so he had to work with what he had. People might say that he had different choices, and I guess he did, but they weren't ideal. Nothing was really ideal. The best bright yellow that he had available to him would turn brown or greenish in a little while, and that was really the best that he had. It's just the way it was then. You either accept it and you use the color that has limited capabilities, or you go with duller color and then you make a piece of art that you not necessarily wanted. Now, like Van Gogh, later on, about 30 years, 40 years, JMW died in about 1851, and Van Gogh died about 1890. So we'll just call it 30, 35 years. He was using a lot of bright colors too, and a lot of the colors that he used weren't that great. In fact, he chose some of the ones that JMW was using. Now, Van Gogh had access to more materials because in that 30, 35 year span that passed between those two, a lot of stuff got produced. And so he had access to a more permanent yellow than JMW did, but Van Gogh decided to use the less permanent yellow, probably because it was cheaper and he was living off of his brother and he had to pick and choose. But then he was also ordering colors from his brother, so I don't know why he didn't order the more permanent one. Maybe he didn't care, or maybe he didn't know. It's hard to say. He was also using a fluorescent color, and fluorescent colors, for anyone who doesn't know, and surely you must, well, maybe, I don't know. Fluorescent colors fade within a day, and that's not an exaggeration. They literally fade within a day, and we still have those out there, and people like to use them every so often, and I it takes me aback every time I hear about people talking about them, and I look at them and go, why? What? Why would you do that to yourself? Dude, literally, one day of sunlight will cause it to fade. I am not I'm not exaggerating. It's that bad. Now, even by Van Gogh's day, if we talk about bad color within paintings, he was considered to have bad color. His colors were pretty outrageous because the flavor of the day then was the Impressionists, and they were considered to have, relatively good color. And of course, later on, color got more and more lavish as time went on. Like the Fauvists came, maybe 15 years after Van Gogh, and then their color was just straight out of the tube. It was something, it was quite a sight to see. But back on material colors, what was considered a good color then obviously is not going to be considered a good color now. Like way back in the day, arsenic colors were somehow considered acceptable, but by no means would they ever be considered acceptable today. And mercury-based colors were considered acceptable then, but by no means would they be considered acceptable today. And the same thing is happening to lead colors. Lead was what you used, lead paint, or you didn't get to use a white paint at all. But these days, lead paint is becoming more and more scarce because we have better options. And we don't need to deal with any of the poison or any of the drawbacks of using these colors. We've got better stuff available. We don't have to worry about it anymore. Better stuff that is not going to poison us and it doesn't react with anything. Our colors, for the most part, are mostly non-toxic and they're inert. And that's good. That means good things for us. So let's think about some more context here, like children's art supplies. If a children is going to draw something, obviously you want their materials to be non-toxic. You don't want them handling a whole bunch of poisonous stuff. That just doesn't make any sense, and you don't want to hamper their development in any way. So non-toxic praying sets and Crayolas and all that good stuff is where it's at for them. And then you have like murals. Outdoor murals, see, some colors don't work so well if you're working outdoors, so you have to pay attention to that. Anything that isn't going to work well outdoors, that's weather fastness. If it's not going to work well outdoors, then it's a bad color. But it might work well indoors. It might be an excellent color indoors. Cadmium colors are very popular with artists. Those are bright yellows and oranges and reds that a lot of artists use, but they're terrible outdoors because if they're exposed to the elements, then they start to fade and they start to discolor. So, not such great colors outdoors, but indoors, they last forever. They're great. See, context. And, then all the different media we use, like pastels. Pastels are a lot like children's media. You don't want you don't want any toxic stuff. Non-toxic stuff is what you want if you're going to work with pastels because there's a lot of dust particles or if you do a bunch of chalk stuff or Conte crayons, you want the non-toxic stuff. It's going to hurt you if you breathe in toxic dust. If you come across something like a cadmium Conte crayon or a cadmium chalk, I don't know if any of that stuff even exists, a cadmium pastel, you need to run away. Don't use it because believe me, you might think that it's not going to be such a big deal and that you're not going to be exposed to dust particles, but you need to get real. You will be exposed, and you're going to run into a point where you start breathing in some dust particles, and when that happens, you need that stuff to be non-toxic. Stay safe, man. And some colors are going to be bad no matter what, like arsenic-based colors. Arsenic-based colors are just across the board bad. Mercury colors across the board bad. Lead colors across the board bad. Now, back in the day, lead color might have been all right because it's what you had, and then a mercury-based color might have been all right because it's what you had, but the arsenic-based one was never good. It was always awful. Arsenic colors have a long and infamous history. Like, there was a popular color called emerald green, and emerald green was so poisonous that it was used as a rat poison. It was even used on wallpaper for one reason or another, and it was quite the situation because lots of people were getting sick from the fumes that would come off this colored wallpaper because the emerald green reacts with moisture, and it creates these fumes that when people breathe in, obviously it's arsenic, it's going to make you very sick. But again, artists were using this color, and the same thing was happening. The moisture was getting into the paint, creating fumes, and they were getting sick off of it. Happened to Gauguin, happened to Van Gogh, happened to Cezanne, probably happened to Turner too, because he used the color, and then it happened to the Impressionists. It was a popular color for a long time, but God, nobody should have ever touched the stuff. And beyond the colors that are obviously bad no matter what, you have colors that are good no matter what, like earth colors, burnt sienna and yellow ochre and black. All those colors are just wonderful. Can't get enough of them. They're always going to be good. They were good, they are good, and they always will be good. Now, I think we could move past bad color in a painting because that's really kind of subjective. I would say that if you're going to look at an objective color and decide whether it's bad in a painting, that you have to ask yourself, does it jive with the piece? Does it work with the piece? That could be subjective. I'm not sure that's an entirely objective question, but you have to look at it and decide, does it work? And then take it from there, and you'll be able to decide whether or not this is a bad color. That seems like a difficult question for me to answer because it just seems so open-ended, and you have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. I hope that makes sense. But let's look at, say, these material colors, because I think that's a little easier to work with. There's some major considerations that artists have to undergo when they decide what makes for a good color or a bad color. Like, we have to decide, how expensive is this color? We have to look at the cost of them. Is it gonna run me a lot of money, or is it gonna be really cheap? And that's obviously a big deciding factor. We only have so much money to throw at these things, right? And believe me, when you buy a whole bunch of them, it starts to add up. And then, next you decide, is it really strong or is it really weak? Does it have good tinting strength? Tinting strength is how, the color affects all the other colors around it. Now, excuse me, I'm a little gassy. Obviously, if you have a color that's cheap and it has good tinting strength, you're automatically going to be drawn to that one. But if it's expensive and it has good tinting strength, then you might overlook the high price tag. But if it's weak and it has a high price tag, then it's kind of a tougher sell. You might also be able to overlook things if it's weak and it has a low price tag. Maybe. Next, you might think about whether it's toxic. Okay, toxicity isn't really a big factor these days because most of the stuff we have is mostly non-toxic and it's inert. There's a few things that cause allergic reactions in some people, and we have some colors that are sort of poisonous, but it's at a point where it's not really a big consideration. I think the most toxic stuff we really have anymore is like cadmiums, and I've talked to a bunch of manufacturers like Windsor, Newton, and Williamsburg, and they've assured me that and gambling too, actually. They've assured me that there's nothing you really need to worry about because they're mostly non-soluble and they're not going to hurt you. Apparently, cadmium manufacturers gotten that good. I, I don't know what the deal is, but they eased my conscience about it, and I felt a lot better about using it afterward because I wasn't so sure. I wasn't so sure. I was thinking maybe it was time to go all non-tox, but now I feel better about it. Next, we need to think about permanence. Is this color going to last? Well, that's kind of a big deal. If it's expensive and it's low tinting, and it's not even permanent, that is a tough sell. Looking at you, Rose Matter Genuine. God. For anyone who doesn't know what that color is, it's a rose color that artists have used for a very long time. It's very weak, it's very expensive, and it's not permanent. But oh, is it beautiful? And that leads us right into the next consideration. Does it look good? And if the answer is yes, then that could override everything else that we think about. It's really important that the color that we're going to use looks good. I'm not sure if I'd call it the most important artistic consideration, but it's definitely a big one. After all, we're going to be using these things and applying them to a picture for people to look at. We want the picture to reflect what we consider to look good. And all these factors kind of figure together. Once we run into something that, oh, if it looks good, then we can take things from there and decide, well, is it permanent? Okay, if it's permanent, that's a good sell. Is it expensive? Oh, it's not that expensive. Hey, that's a good deal too. Oh, it's non-toxic, and ooh, it's very strong. Well, that all in all is a winner of a paint, huh? And there's probably more to think about besides that, but I think that about covers all the considerations that I go through when I'm thinking about what makes a good color. And maybe you have some more that I haven't thought of. Let me know. I'm really interested to hear what people think about this whole subject of whether or not there's such thing as a bad color, because it seems like an interesting philosophical discussion that also has some objective facts attached to it. I think it's time for me to go now, everybody. I'll see you real soon. I have a few videos that I've had in mind. I was thinking about going through a few Paul Signac paintings, showing you my favorites, and talking about why I like them. And I was also thinking about doing this series about the colors that artists use, because I think that might be something that people are going to be interested in, especially the people who say have a casual interest in art, or people who are very new. I think that would be good for them. And there's also a Secret of Glowing Color video that I've been working on, and I think I filmed it twice and I still don't like it, and God, I don't know what's going on. I just can't get it right. I think I've been trying to do too many things at once during the video, where I should just be focusing on one thing and just do that and let that be it. Sometimes you try to add a whole bunch of things to these videos to try and make them longer than they probably should be. I don't know why. I think I'm just an overachiever. But I'm just going to keep it simple and call it good. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you liked this video, and I hope it was interesting. I'd really appreciate it if you could give this a like, and if you want to subscribe, hey, I'd love to have you. And, if you don't really feel like subscribing, I get it. It's okay. It hurts me a little bit here, but I'll be alright. I cry silent tears. Alright, everybody. I'll see you later. Until next time, bye-bye now.